So following on from those keynotes, what we have is what role PKI, public key infrastructure, plays in digital identities. And the role that we play is banks and notaries, they verify identities and verification. And so how does a PKI supplier use the information to enable consistent use of digital identities? Well, digital identities and user identities, the legislation that exists for digital signatures, for example, through eIDAS, for advanced and qualified electronic signatures, the use of PSD2 by financial institutions for identity and secure access is how organizations use it. All of this is based on PKI, and PKI is something that's in use every day by everyone. So we see the future of digital identities and us playing a role in that through PKI. And so what I want to do is touch on these three areas, why digital identities are the key to digital security transformation, the role that they play, and of course, how they're managed. It's very important to understand how they're managed and maintained, because that leads to resilience in IT security. So why are digital certificates, why are they key? And it's because public key infrastructure is essential to basic IT security hygiene. It's used, as I say, everywhere. It's used for securing websites and web servers and internal servers. It's used for automation of identities and encryption, for email security and digital document signing. It's used for authentication in mobiles and machines, in IoT. So everyone uses it every day. And it's the most used internet security service. It plays a significant role in enabling remote working and remote commerce. So, we're in this time of COVID-19. It's allowing businesses and service providers to be agile to a new way of handling the wave of online consumer trending, but of course in a secure way, not just for the business themselves, but for their customers. The most important thing that we're going to go through, and I'm going to touch on the then and the now. If we keep in mind PKI is an already in use technology, it's enabling this reimaging, this thought process around how we use digital identities. It used to be about protecting points of entry to prevent access to sensitive information. Obviously, banks need to prevent fraud and rogue access to that information. Today, it's used in digital transformation, and it's used where digital identities can become common in a role of playing remote signing, remote access to services. It's also used in a cloud environment, and when we talk about being online and being in a consumer space or a business space, we then talk about Internet of Things, use of mobile technology and mobile apps. All of these create an attack vector, the security threats that were talked about previously for all these connected endpoints. So to give some sort of gravitas to that, so 89% of all companies have already adopted a digital-first business strategy or plan to do so. And obviously that's being expedited because of COVID-19. 60% of executives believe connected technology and the Internet of Things will play an important role in their company's digital strategy. And 85% of enterprises' workloads will be in the cloud by the end of 2020. Kind of leads to the questions that we ask when we deal with providing PKI and the security digital certificate-based services that we do to enterprises. The question we ask is, how can you as a business address the evolving environment with your business drivers in mind? The business drivers being the reasons a business does something, whether it's regulation or legislation, or whether it's best practice, or because they want to gain competitive edge. These are all the things that drives a business forward. It's these questions actually that we need to continue to ask from an evolution perspective. What's evolving? What are the evolving drivers with your customers in mind? In essence, they're the same thought process. So business drivers, they're what enables the sort of remedy, let's say, to enterprise business challenges and pain points. We look at their operational needs, security needs, their regulatory needs. It's all about future proofing by addressing these business drivers. How can we do it? What are the operational needs, the security needs? What are the financial institutions, for example? What legislation and regulations are they affected by? And then this has still got to be about automation and best practice, and none more important than cost effectiveness. And so this is the role that PKI actually plays, although in an enterprise space, it plays that every day. And more businesses during COVID-19 have been turning to this type of process. So what we know is what drives businesses from an infrastructure and security perspective. But it's the fintechs, the financial institutions themselves that are the experts at knowing what drives your customers. I think what Ian showed with the heat map, for example, shows how these types of KPIs and analytics really help understand consumer trending. So we take a look at the automation, the cost drivers, the external circumstances that are here. Automation has to be in place because it's got to be cyclical in a process. The cost of technology, the adoption of this new wave can't account for an unreal portion of a budget. But it still needs to follow all of those things, such as best practice. It still needs to essentially address those real business drivers. And then you get the change in external circumstances, and we have COVID-19. In 2008, we had the financial crisis, and these things come along. And so, being agile and being able to use services that are future-proof is an incredibly important thing. So if we go into kind of the use cases, let's say, of digital identities and PKI in the context of a financial institution, one of the core ways to use this, the core roles of digital identity, is in digital signatures. And what we've got two different types of digital signatures, two different types of signatures, let's say. One is a basic electronic signature. And this is anything from putting an image of your signature into a document, it's typing your name into an email, it is ticking a box to say, I agree to terms and conditions. All of these things, they're not backed by identity. They're not backed by protocols that ensure who did it and when it occurred. Whereas that's the role of digital signatures. It's to make sure that the identity is known and verified, to timestamp, to basically enable a legal equivalent of a wetting signature. And this is incredibly important, and it's part of the kind of the future scope of financial institutions. So in this, we talk about in digital signature terms, we talk about what's called advanced electronic signatures and seals, and qualified electronic signatures and seals, And actually, all financial institutions use PSD2, and they're actually a combination of these things. So it's already, again, in use. It's uniquely linked to the signatory. It's capable of identifying the signatory as well. It's created on something that is secure and safe. So it uses cryptography, a cryptographic device, as part of that process. And it's completely auditable. That's the most important thing. There are two main things when it comes to any kind of document and any kind of digital signature, which is the integrity of the content, which is the use of PDF and digital signatures, timestamping, and then the authenticity of the origin, and that's the validation part. So in this, where financial institutions follow stringent validation processes for their customers, the use of digital identities for legally valid signatures has, before COVID-19, it's maybe been a bit slow to move away from basic electronic signatures. So what I'm saying is banks already do an amazingly robust validation process for KYC, and they already then have the information to be able to go on to use these things. So the hard work's already been done, and the adoption of these identity-based digital signatures is particularly easy. Yeah, I mean, we can consider, I suppose, three facets of this. KYC, verified information of consumers and of businesses, opening bank accounts and so on. Well, obviously, we do that as well in a different way as an identity provider as well as a consumer, and we validate the existence and legitimacy of businesses. And if this was in a financial context, banks and fintechs and those that are accessing this type of sensitive information using PSD2, well, they can use the digital certificates that we provide, PSD2, for example, qualified certificates, to apply both advanced or qualified electronic seals and use them for e-archiving or for e-invoicing. And I think it was Manny that touched on earlier the 7-year rule that is needed to be used to retain information, and therefore this is where the e-archiving legislation that's about to come into force or has just kicked in from the European Union endorses and strongly suggests the use of qualified or advanced electronic seals. As well as businesses, you get employees, and employees in a context of this are using advanced or qualified electronic signatures, and they're doing this for internal approvals, or they're doing it for underwriting, or they're doing it to countersign agreements. And as we move and we think about how and the role of consumers in this, well, consumers can do the same. They can use advanced or qualified electronic signatures to sign credit agreements, or even for other identity-based signature-reliant documents. So the service that goes in behind that is ensuring that all of this is capable through automation, can handle high volume, can be backed by verified and auditable and trusted cryptographic devices. It uses common technology. For example, it could use the DocuSigns, the Adobe Signs, something that's proprietary, and it is suitable for both businesses and consumers. So these certificate-based authentications, they ensure only approved users, machines and devices in a business context, again, can access and operate corporate networks. We see businesses using mobile device management, now called universal device management services, to manage bring your own device and so on in their environment. All of these things can be used to deploy certificates very easily, very simply to devices when connected to a network or even outside the network. And it is, of course, up for a company like us. We're 25 years old, very nearly. We're the longest, and we accommodate businesses of all sizes. And it doesn't matter who, how small or how large, the context is the same. So when we take those already in use business use cases, we then start to think about how we embed them through mobile banking applications and so on, and online banking. Digital identities are not only able to be used to sign and seal documents, but also to be able to be used to authenticate. They can be used as a genuine, secure digital identity. And the point of this is that only the users with correctly configured certificates can then access the resources and applications, which is incredibly important when we talk about fraud and we talk about access to information. This whole spike in online and cybercrime, well, one of the remedies is to use genuine verified identities, genuine verified and known devices, and to have that type of ethic within our practices, especially when remote working is now trending towards the norm. It's incredibly important. It of course needs to be user friendly. It's got to be simple to use. It's got to be able to be used on a laptop or desktop. It's got to be able to be used on a mobile. It's the information of how to use it must be simplistic. All of these things are incredibly important in how to consume digital identities. And again, when we think about authenticating through mobile banking applications, it's certainly possible and actually very easy. And parts of the fraud, let's say, is down to very smart thinking on how to circumvent two-factor authentication, the use of just the simple use of passwords or OTP. And that's got to be the thought process as we move forward of how cryptography and certificate-based identities can be used to prevent that from happening. And I think it's important then to touch on the role that fintechs are going to play in making the reimagining of digital identities possible. We all work on, when we think about these technologies, I'm in partnerships. They're part of my my strength, and these fintechs can and financial institution consultants can really help to kind of think about how the use of digital identities can be used for authentication. So how digital identities, how are they created and managed? I'm just going to whiz through this because I'm very mindful of time. But all of the things that kind of makes up the behind the scenes things with PKI that everybody uses every day, and it's sometimes missed, is everything has to start with this certificate lifecycle management and discovery and provisioning, and certificate and lifecycle management is an incredibly important thing in all of these facets that we're talking about today. So everything from request and issuance, how it's discovered, how the inventory is monitored, manage the security obviously it provides, how these things are renewed, because all identities must be based on a finite amount of time. They can't be infinite. And of course, then what happens should a credential or device, a mobile device, for example, be lost? Well, there must be a way to revoke that identity and reapply. And Global Side has a number of services that are used across the way we enable IoT, the way we enable internal security, the way we enable external security. We have this service called Atlas, and it's an incredibly robust and scalable certification authority in a hardened environment. So that's kind of the backbone of what we do, and then you get the middleware. We have solutions that are middlewares. These are taking policy-based rules and enabling those policy-based rules to provision certificates to a person or an endpoint in a very secure way, and therefore it's a way to enable the simplicity of requesting and issuing and that whole certificate lifecycle management. And on top of that, everything must be managed, of course, and the a strong and robust management service of how you run your commercial side and how you do reporting and all of that. It's all inclusive. It's all natural part of the service. But I wanted to end again with this slide, and hopefully I haven't sped too fast through this whole presentation. And if I'll be glad to answer any questions. But PKI is essential to basic security hygiene, but that's not just in a business context. It's in a consumer context as well. It's in how we communicate via email, via chat, how we use services like Zoom or Teams or any of these things. They all use PKI, the padlocks in the browsers, for example, or they are the digital signatures or encryption certificates that are used in securing email. These services come together to create a method of consuming digital identities, but for a cost-effective, future-proof means. And I think the point is, to summarize then, the point is the solution is only as strong as the technology. The partner and identity validation combined, whether it's about website authentication or authentication in general, or whether it's about digital signatures, that always holds true. The identity validation is something that GlobalSign as a CA specializes in, but of course we recognize that banks have quite rigid processes as well, and they are used, for example, for the UK Gov Verify system and many other EID programs. So the opportunity COVID-19 in the world today is how we can help one another to create a solution that works for the banks and their customers, for the financial institutions and their customers. From GlobalSign to banks, by us providing technology and validation practices and how we provide the business side services, the PS2s and so on, and how the bank to GlobalSign, how the banks help GlobalSign by doing the validation on our behalf, because obviously that's an area they're incredibly strong and audited rigidly against, without any reuse by GlobalSign. Of course, it's important that we say that. And it's all about, so by doing that, customers can then have enforceable digital signatures and enforceable mechanisms of authentication. Okay, that is it for my slides, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.